All right, ready to dive in. Today, we're tackling a topic, well, a person really, shrouded in heavy metal mystery.
And mystery is definitely on the table today.
We're talking about Paul Di Anno, the original vocalist for Iron Maiden, and digging into the how and why of his departure. We've got listener questions about what he's been up to since, the impact on his career, and even some curious questions about the financial side of music. Like, do royalties follow you even after you leave a band?
It's a really interesting story, and you're right, lots to unpack there, from the music itself to the business behind it.
So let's start with the man himself, Paul Di Anno.
Right, so picture the music scene, late 70s. It's a melting pot, punk's still raging, but there's this raw energy building, pushing for something, well, heavier.
Like the air itself was vibrating a little differently.
Exactly. And in this environment, you've got Paul Di Anno, this young guy cutting his teeth in the London clubs, right? A natural fit for a band like, well, Iron Maiden, as they were just starting out.
And those first two albums, we're talking Iron Maiden in 1980, Killers the year after, pure energy. Those albums really cemented their sound. Do you think that sound would have been the same without Diano's vocals?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Because you're right, his vocals were raw, almost aggressive, especially
Right.
for that time. It stood out, gave them an edge. It's hard to imagine those albums without that raw power.
So then he leaves. Poof. Our listener wants to know, what's the story there?
Well, that's where the mystery deepens, because honestly, the exact reasons are, let's just say they're a bit of a heavy metal legend on their own.
You mean there's no definitive answer?
There's been speculation, oh, plenty of it, but nothing concrete, nothing everyone agrees on.
So a true rock and roll enigma then, which I guess adds to the intrigue. But it does make you wonder what happens to a musician after leaving such a high-profile band. I mean, especially when you're talking about a founding member, someone who helped build that band from the ground up.
You hit the nail on the head there. It's got to be a unique challenge navigating that kind of transition. And Diano's story after Iron Maiden is, well, it's a testament to carving your own path. He didn't just disappear. He had, and still has, a pretty successful solo career. Plus, he's been part of numerous other bands over the years, keeping busy.
That speaks volumes, doesn't it? He didn't just ride the Iron Maiden wave. He clearly loves making music, experimenting, doing his own thing. But there's another side to his story that we should address. The health challenges he's faced. Those have been pretty serious, haven't they?
Yeah, definitely. Without going into too much detail, he has faced some significant health issues in recent years.
And for someone so connected to performing, that's got to be incredibly tough.
Oh, absolutely. It certainly added a layer of complexity to his life and career. It's hard to imagine, being so used to the energy of the stage and then having to adapt to limitations like that.
Yeah, no doubt. It really makes you think about, well, the fragility of it all, right? And it also brings us to a question our listener asked that I bet a lot of people listening have wondered about. Royalties.
Mm.
If those early albums were so important to Iron Maiden's success, does someone like Diano still see any of those profits?
Now, that is a question that takes us into the fascinating and sometimes murky world of the music industry.
Because on the one hand, it's art, it's passion, it's this incredible form of self-expression.
Right. And on the other, it's a business with contracts and lawyers and all these moving parts most people don't even think about. But to answer your question, generally speaking, yes, original members who hold songwriting credits on commercially successful albums do typically continue to receive royalties.
So even though Diano's not with Iron Maiden anymore, those early songs are still generating income, and he's entitled to a cut.
Precisely. However, and this is a big however, the specifics, oh, they can get incredibly convoluted. It's not as simple as everyone getting an equal slice of the pie. Contracts vary wildly. Publishing deals add another layer of complexity. And then you've got individual agreements between band members, especially in the early days, that could impact how things are divided.
So while those early albums are likely still generating revenue, it's not as simple as just splitting it evenly. It really is a reminder that even in the world of heavy metal, there's a lot going on behind the scenes. And in Diano's case, well, that just adds another layer to the mystery, doesn't it?
Absolutely. But even with all that said, you can't deny the enduring power of those first two Iron Maiden albums. They represent a pivotal moment in music history, a fusion of punk energy and that emerging heavy metal sound.
It makes you wonder, what if? What if Diano had stayed? Would Iron Maiden's sound have evolved differently? Would they have reached the same level of global success?
The great what-ifs of music history.
It's a question we'll never know the answer to, but it's fascinating to think about how one person's presence or absence can impact the trajectory of a band. And in the end, that's Paul Di Anno's legacy, isn't it? A mix of incredible talent, a whole lot of mystery, and a sound that helped define a generation of metal.
A true icon in his own right.
Absolutely. And there you have it, another deep dive exploring not just the music we love, but the stories behind it and the questions those stories raise.